1. Solo Siko's challenge and Tamatonga's cryptic moment with Nakamura at SmackDown. The Bloodline just sent a message that WWE is desperately trying to downplay, and if you only watched the official broadcast, you missed the real story. Solo Siko didn't just issue a challenge on SmackDown, he declared war on everyone who thinks the Bloodline is finished. And Tamatonga's interaction with Shinsuke Nakamura backstage wasn't just a random encounter, it was a recruitment moment that could completely reshape the faction landscape in WWE. But here's what's making this explosive: WWE cut away from both moments before they fully played out, and the footage that's leaking from fans in the arena tells a completely different story than what aired on TV. They're hiding something massive, and I'm about to expose exactly what went down and why it changes everything. Let's start with Solo Siko's challenge, because what you saw on SmackDown was the sanitized version. Solo comes out during the second hour, stands in the ring, and delivers what seems like a standard "I'm the tribal chief now" promo. He talks about carrying on the legacy, being the enforcer, all the usual Bloodline rhetoric. Then he issues an open challenge to anyone who thinks they can step up and face the Bloodline at their strongest. That's where the TV broadcast cuts to commercial. But here's what happened during the commercial break that WWE didn't want you to see. Multiple fans posted videos from the arena showing Solo continuing his promo while they were off the air. And what he said is shocking. Solo looks directly at the camera, which is still recording for the arena screens even though they're not broadcasting, and says, "This challenge isn't just for tonight. This is for anyone who's been running their mouth about the Bloodline being weak without Roman. Cody Rhodes? You think beating Roman makes you untouchable? I'm coming for that title. Drew McIntyre? You think you're the scariest man on SmackDown? I'll put you down like the dog you are. LA Knight? You've been yanging your way through mediocrity while we built an empire." The crowd is going insane with boos, but Solo keeps going. And to anyone in the back who thinks they can slide into a Bloodline spot now that we're rebuilding, you better ask yourself if you're worthy. Because we don't need hangers-on. We don't need politicians. We need warriors who bleed for this family. Then, and this is the part WWE really didn't want on TV, Solo looks toward the stage and says, including you, "Gee, you think you can run around here playing the people's hero after everything this family did for you? You're a traitor, and traitors get dealt with. Acknowledge that." The camera feed to the screens cuts off at that point, but fans in the arena said Solo stood there for another full minute staring at the stage like he was daring GUSO to come out. He didn't, but the tension was thick. WWE deliberately didn't broadcast any of that because they don't want G involved in Bloodline storylines right now. He's doing his own thing on Raw. But Solo just made it clear he considers G an enemy. Now, WWE could have aired that footage and gotten massive heat for Solo. Why didn't they? Because they're terrified of the backlash. Solo calling out Cody, Drew, and LA Knight in one promo sets up too many potential feuds at once. WWE doesn't want to commit to any of those matches yet, so they cut the promo short and pretended it never happened. But it did happen, and now fans who were there are spreading the word online. The challenge itself, the on-air version, got answered by Apollo Crews, which was weird because Apollo hasn't been positioned as a main event threat. He comes out, they have a match, Solo destroys him in under 5 minutes with a Samoan spike. Standard squash to make Solo look dominant. Nothing controversial there. But the real story of the night was what happened backstage with Tamatonga and Shinsuke Nakamura, and this is where things get absolutely wild. WWE showed about 15 seconds of this interaction on the broadcast, just Tama walking past Nakamura in the hallway, both men nodding at each other. That's it. Seemed like nothing, right? Wrong. According to multiple backstage sources and wrestlers who witnessed the full interaction, what actually happened was a 5-minute conversation between Tama and Nakamura that WWE deliberately chose not to air. And the content of that conversation is mind-blowing. Here's what I'm hearing from people who were there. Tama approached Nakamura near the catering area. They greeted each other in Japanese, both men speak it fluently. They started talking, and Tama allegedly said something like, "You've been wandering without purpose for too long, brother. It's time to remember who you really are." Nakamura responded, and this is according to a wrestler who was close enough to hear, "What are you suggesting?" And Tama replied, "I'm suggesting that the Bloodline isn't just about Samoans. It's about warriors. It's about people who understand violence and respect. You're one of the most dangerous men in this company, but WWE has you doing comedy with Rick Boogs and dancing to the ring. That's not who you are." The conversation continued with Tama allegedly laying out a vision of Nakamura joining the Bloodline as an honorary member, similar to how Sami Zayn was positioned before, but with Nakamura being an actual threat rather than comic relief. Tama reportedly said, "Solo sees it. I see it. The question is whether you see it. Whether you're ready to be king of strong style again instead of whatever this is." Nakamura didn't give a yes or no answer, but according to witnesses, he didn't walk away either. He listened, he considered, and then he said, "Let me think about what you're offering." They shook hands, a traditional Japanese formal handshake, not the Western style, and went their separate ways. WWE showed none of this. they cut it down to a 3-second passing nod. Why? Because they haven't decided yet if they're actually doing this angle. They're testing the waters, seeing how fans react to even the hint of Nakamura Bloodline association. If it gets a positive response, they'll pull the trigger. If fans reject it, they can pretend it was nothing. But here's why this is brilliant: if WWE actually commits to it, Nakamura has been wasted for years. He's one of the best workers in the world, he has instant credibility, and putting him in the Bloodline would give the faction a wildcard element. He's not Samoan, he's not family, but he's dangerous. And having Tamatonga, who's already an outsider to the Anoa'i family tree, be the one recruiting him makes total sense. The wrestling community's reaction to the leaked details has been fascinating. You've got one group of fans begging for Nakamura to join the Bloodline because they think it would revitalize his character and give him something meaningful to do. They're pointing out that he's been directionless since his last title run, and aligning with Solo could make him a main event threat again. Then you've got another group who's furious at the idea because they think the Bloodline is overexposed and doesn't need more members. They argue that WWE already ruined the Bloodline by stretching it too thin with too many people, and adding Nakamura would just repeat that mistake. They want the Bloodline to stay small and focused, just Solo, Tama, and Tonga Loa. And there's a third group, the purists, who think Nakamura joining the Bloodline would be a betrayal of his character. They say he's always been a lone wolf, and turning him into someone's lackey, even in an honorary member capacity, diminishes what makes him special. Here's what I think is really happening, and this connects both Solo's challenge and the Tama Nakamura moment. The Bloodline is being rebuilt as a more dangerous, less family-oriented faction. Under Roman, it was all about bloodline, legacy, and the Anoa'i family tree. Under Solo, it's becoming about dominance and violence regardless of heritage. That's why Tama can recruit Nakamura, because Solo's version of the Bloodline isn't exclusive to Samoans. It's exclusive to people who can fight and win. And that opens up massive storytelling possibilities. Imagine the Bloodline with Solo, Tama, Tonga Loa, and Nakamura going up against Cody's allies. That's a stacked faction that could dominate SmackDown for years. But it also creates problems. If the Bloodline becomes anyone who's tough can join, does it lose what made it special? Does it become just another generic stable? And how does Roman Reigns react when he eventually returns and sees that Solo has completely transformed what the Bloodline represents? Let me ask you, and I need you to comment with your real opinion: should Nakamura join the Bloodline? Would it help his career or hurt the Bloodline's mystique? And do you think Solo's open challenge during the commercial break should have aired, or was WWE right to cut it? Here's the bigger question: is WWE being smart by testing these storylines off-air and on social media before committing, or are they being cowardly by not fully committing to bold creative decisions? Because that's what this feels like, WWE dipping their toe in the water instead of diving in. The Solo challenge could have been a massive moment setting up multiple feuds. Instead, they neutered it and gave us a Apollo Crews squash match. The Tama Nakamura conversation could have been a shocking on-air recruitment. Instead, they reduced it to a background interaction and let fans piece together what happened from backstage reports. WWE is so afraid of fan backlash that they're not willing to pull the trigger on anything controversial until they've focus grouped it to death. And that's killing the spontaneity and unpredictability that makes wrestling exciting. Here's my prediction for how this plays out: Nakamura will join the Bloodline, but not for another month. WWE will tease it with more cryptic moments, gauge fan reaction, and then pull the trigger when they're confident it won't flop. Solo's challenge will lead to a match with Cody Rhodes at the next premium live event, but they'll build it slowly rather than capitalizing on the heat Solo generated during that commercial break. In other words, WWE will take two hot angles that could be explosive right now, and they'll cool them down by overthinking and overplanning until they're just lukewarm storylines that fans expect rather than shocking developments they can't predict. And that's the tragedy of modern WWE. They have all the pieces for incredible storytelling, but they're so corporate and risk-averse that they can't help but sabotage their own creative momentum. Drop your comments now. Do you want Nakamura in the Bloodline? Should Solo have been allowed to call out everyone during his challenge? And are you frustrated with WWE cutting away from the most interesting parts of storylines? Hit that like button if you're tired of WWE hiding the best content from broadcasts. Subscribe, because when this Nakamura Bloodline situation develops, and it will, I'll have all the details that WWE tries to keep off TV. Share this with every wrestling fan, because people need to know what actually happened at SmackDown, not just the sanitized version WWE wants you to see. Solo Siko declared war on the entire SmackDown roster during a commercial break. Tamatonga recruited Shinsuke Nakamura in a conversation WWE refused to air. And we're all sitting here wondering why WWE keeps hiding their most compelling content. The Bloodline is evolving into something completely different, and WWE is too scared to show you the full transformation. But we see it anyway. And it's spectacular.